See here. Hello out there, Adventure Racers. It's William Wild Bill Donahue here with rookie Adventure Racer Barbara Phipps, who describes herself as just an average girl, but I think she's probably a lot more than that. She hails from Portland, Oregon. Barbara, you just did your first adventure races this year, right? So
Yep.
what race did you decide to start? You're getting into adventure racing. What's the first race you decide you're going to do?
Expedition Oregon, obviously. Go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
I definitely took that one seriously.
So okay, what prompted you to just jump in to a 300-mile expedition adventure race?
I think like most of the new racers in 2021, I'd seen the Eco Challenge on Amazon. I binged watched it so hard. It was, we've got 3 young kids, and I have a really strict adults watching TV rule where we don't do it. When our kids are awake, that happens when the kids go to bed, and then we can have, a TV show. But we started watching it one night, and I think it was probably a Friday night. We started watching it, and we finished it on Sunday. And I'm pretty sure one of the days on that weekend, we sat and watched it all day. And I can tell you that has never happened before. My kids are like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, can we turn this off?" And I'm like, "No." And so I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever seen. I was just like, I was in love just from watching it. These people were amazing. And obviously you're watching it thinking, wow, that would be so cool if I could do that. And I'm thinking, that would be awesome. And then I put it to rest. And maybe like a week later, my brother called me and said, "Do you want to do an adventure race with me?" So I said, "Yeah, I do." And it had never even occurred to me to actually go out and do it. Like, I just thought that's for really athletic, amazing, hardcore, superpower people. And
Yeah.
that was definitely not me with the 4-month-old baby. And it wasn't me. But when he gave me that opportunity, I was kind of in a low place anyway. I have really, really bad postpartum depression, like the kind that is
Wow.
very scary and ends up with, people in the news saying she's a really selfish mom. And it's dangerous postpartum. It's so at 4 months postpartum, I was in a dark place personally. And when my brother called me up and said, "No, I think you can do it." And like, it was like a switch turned on in me, and it was like, wait, maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I decided I really wanted it. I was going to do it. And so I did.
Cool.
But yeah,
so all right, was it just you and your brother?
So yeah, I was not. We are from a really big family, so when we want to do crazy things, we have a very big pool to pull from because we're all a little bit brain damaged. I think anyone who's doing something like a 300-mile race is going to have a little bit of that going on. So he actually ended up calling a few of my other siblings first, I think, and just from places of where they were in their life, there was just no way it was going to happen. And so he called me, and we went through a series of, we need more people. I dragged my husband into it because I'm a loving wife.
Yeah.
He was reluctant at first, I think. And also, I think at first he said yes because he didn't realize that my brother had a place already set in the Expedition Oregon. He thought,
Okay.
"Oh man, there's no way you're going to get in. There's a limited amount of slots," right? Like, he's thinking, "Yeah, I'll say yes," because then you get the benefit of saying, "Yes, I'm super awesome and would totally do this,"
Yeah.
but you also don't have to totally do this. He totally had to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did try and back out at one point, or I can't remember. There was one point where he was being maybe a little bit negative or something, and I just was like, "No, that's it. I need you to be positive. We are doing this." And ever since then, he was Mr. Go-To, and he was like, "Okay,
All right.
but
So,
and then, sorry,
go ahead.
Oh,
I was
I
going
was
to
just
ask
going
you
to
about
say,
your.
I was just going to say our last teammate came in a little bit later, Jamaica Lambie. He actually knows what he's doing. He's raced before, and he was recommended to us by Jason because 2 of our other teammates that were planning on doing it actually dropped off. But that's super common in expedition racing, I think, for things to happen in the journey.
Oh yeah.
So
cool. So then what's your outdoor background, right? Mountain biker, whitewater kayaking?
I told you I'm an average girl. I mean, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, so I don't really get out a lot. My adventures up until this point really basically included going to the gym for 2 hours until COVID. But growing up, fortunately, this is my one thing I can kind of do in adventure racing is whitewater rafting. My dad is an avid whitewater rafter. He loves it. And so we would go whitewater rafting down the American River. Growing up, it's in California. It's got 3 different forks and different options. And so when we were maybe 10, that's when I think I started, and he took us down, and we're a family of, he has 10 kids. So I have 9 siblings, right? So I told you it's a big family. So he didn't really have to worry about filling the boat, right? He just throws some people in there, teach them how to paddle and go for it. No, he was very safety conscious, but, and so as we would grow older, he would teach the older kids how to guide, and eventually ended up with extra boats and stuff like that. And by the time I was older, he never actually taught me. I'm not quite sure if it was just because he and I butt heads pretty bad, or if it was just where they were in life at that time. But he never actually taught me. But I discovered on Expedition Oregon, I had actually learned a lot just by listening to him teach for other people in the boat. Actually, maybe it was only 3. No, it's probably 4. Because he wasn't just teaching his older kids, he would also teach, like, he had a best friend that he still to this day rafts down. So as we got better at rafting, we would do crazier rafting trips. And now it's an annual thing almost for him. I mean, he's 64, 65, and he goes down the Klamath every year around the 4th of July.
Nice.
Yeah, super fun, right? I've only done the Klamath once, maybe twice, I think. And then we did the Grand Canyon 8 years ago, which was, up until that point, probably the coolest, most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. And that was one of the reasons why I really wanted my husband to do this with me, is because we just moved to the United States and he just started a new job. So he didn't have the time off to do Grand Canyon. And so I'm so disappointed in myself for not finding a way to make sure he could have done that with me, because it was a truly amazing experience, and it just breaks my heart that he didn't get to do it. But it also means I can go and do it again. So I wasn't gonna make that mistake again, and I said, no, we're doing this. So whitewater rafting's our thing. It's a little different when you're, in a pack raft, but I mean, hitting the rapids in a pack raft is pretty similar. So I had never guided before until we got out there. I was a little bit nervous because I hadn't even been on the river in 8 years. So I was like, I hope I can still do this, which I could. Yay.
That's like riding a bike.
For me, it was easier because I got to tell you, my mountain biking skills are just the worst.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, no, I'm super awesome at mountain biking. So if you're looking for a teammate, definitely come to me because I will not hold you back. I'm so bad. I fall all the time. My teammates did the best they could to teach me beforehand, but I mean, I'd never been on a trail before until this year. So there's just, you just can't learn how to mountain bike in a couple of months, Maybe you can, just I can't.
What was the training like then to get ready for the race?
Oh, you go for a walk here or there. No. Fortunately, my husband used to do running club when he was in university, and he's been running marathons since we had kids, like maybe once a year. So so I kind of combined like a marathon training plan with a bike training plan. And I just went online and started looking at different plans for like triathlons, and I kind of came up with my own.
Cool.
it was okay. I learned a lot, and obviously I'll be training differently for my next round. But I've always really liked working out, so that wasn't much of a problem. I do wish I had lifted more weights. Lifting is more my preferred form of exercise,
Mhm.
mixed with a little bit of like sprinting. And so I wish I'd done a lot more of what I preferred, because I think I would have been a little faster and stronger.
Yeah.
But when you're thinking you got to get your miles in, it's a lot harder to squeeze in extra time for weightlifting. And I've got 3 young kids,
Yeah.
no one to watch them but my spouse, who is also training. So it was pretty hard on our family, the training part. I mean, the
Yeah.
journey getting to the race was far more grueling than the race itself, maybe. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That you'll find that's often the case. So how did you guys find time to train, and how did that balance work out?
Well, it's COVID, so my husband's been working from home, um, and we've got a lot of fitness equipment at home already, so that was fortunate for us.
Mhm.
So usually what I would end up doing is, when the baby would go down for a nap, I would go for a workout, um, and then the kids would be at home while he was in a meeting. So they were like Netflixing a lot. This definitely changed my policy of how much TV my kids are allowed to watch. But so yeah, I would usually go during nap times. I tried a couple of times to wake up early and get it done, but that was really stressful for me because he would have
Yeah.
meetings in the morning. And so I didn't like that anxiety of feeling like I couldn't focus on my workout because I was focused so much on getting back home and getting back into my job.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and he would usually work out. I mean, towards the end we were doing longer workouts, so sometimes it would have to be where I would go and I would work out in the evenings, or we'd do a shorter workout and during a nap time, or he would do a shorter workout, and then in the evenings we would take turns, or life just got busy. And so if it didn't happen then, I mean, there's no excuses when you're going into a team sport and it's this long a sport. If you don't do that training session, I mean, what kind of person are you? I mean, there's no way to talk yourself out of it, right? You've already made
Yeah.
that commitment to other people that you're going to do this with them. So you have to prepare yourself for it. So it's kind of nice motivationally wise, because even when you were exhausted, like, yeah, I wanted to sit down and I wanted to spend time with my husband, but on the bike I went up and down a
Yeah.
gravel road.
There you go.
So yeah, we just mostly stuck to the stuff around the house. So towards the end, I was getting really bored of our 20-mile route. And
Yeah.
there's a hill right next to my house, but it's a very steep incline on the back side of this hill, and it's gravel too. So it was the best option I had for like anything close to mountain biking. And I'm
Yeah.
really bad on the mountain bike, and just my strength isn't where it should be, and I'm heavy, and so I would just go up and down the backside of that hill. I mean, I think one day I was out there for hours. I'm not even kidding when I say 4 hours.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how many miles I did, but I wanted to make sure that I hit a certain elevation. I can't even remember. I was just out there for so
Yeah.
long. And you're out there by yourself, and it's the same. I mean, I think that part of the hill is half a mile or less. It's a
Okay.
250-foot incline, and I was just I think I probably hit around 15 to 20 miles, just
Oh, wow.
so hours of this very
Yeah.
samey. I'm really good at going down that gravel road, though. I mean, like, I can zoom
Yeah.
past it. I make my husband very nervous going down it, but I'm like, dude, no, I know every little piece of rock on this road now.
Yeah. How was it
So,
going up?
oh, it's tough, man. But I'm proud of myself. When I first got on my husband hybrid bike, because he didn't have mountain bikes, but that was another story because it's COVID and there's a mountain bike shortage. Which
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. But so we did have like a hybrid bike that I took out, and the first time I went out for a long ride, it's a 12-mile loop that I now do in an hour, and it's no big deal. You know, it's just like, oh, I'll just go really fast. And that's my midweek easy. I don't have time for anything exciting. I'll just go do that loop. And it's so crazy to think what it is for me to do that now. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
To what it was when I was like, I'm gonna go on this today's my long cycle, you know? And so I get out there, and I couldn't make it home without walking. And mentally in my mind, I know that hill is coming. It's not that big a hill. And I know the tree that I stopped at to stand in the shade because I was just dying. And I zoomed past it, and mentally I'm thinking, okay, just don't forget there's that hill. Because I mean, it killed me the first time. And so now, despite having cycled that route so many times, every time I get towards the end of my loop, I'm like, there's that hill in the tree. And then I'm like, wait, where's the tree? Oh, I already passed it. You know? And so it's just, there's a really steep hill on that one as well, but this is all road. So it's a little bit different. I wanted to practice more on gravel, but I can get up it easy. Not easy. I mean, I'm out of breath, but it's crazy to think that was my really intense beginning. And now it's a nothing.
So
I have discovered that I love cycling though. My husband's more a runner, but I totally love the bike. So I'm in love.
So what was the time frame here from when you started training, when you had to, get off the bike and stand under the tree until the race, I guess, or until you like can blow past that tree?
October, somewhere in October.
Okay.
So that's when I started training. Probably the beginning of October, and then zooming past it. I don't even know. I stopped taking that route later on just because it wasn't long enough, and it didn't have hard enough hills. So
Listen to you.
See, I told you, it does things to you. I'm a totally different person now. I met someone the other day who does ultras. And a year ago, I would have thought that person was insane. And now I'm like, yeah, I want to do an ultra someday. That sounds
There you go.
awesome. I don't even like running, but I just want to be able to do it. It sounds cool. Plus, I've discovered running around in the woods and on trail is totally different. My husband's first marathon was a trail marathon, and it was the hardest thing he'd ever done. And I think he even still feels like that trail marathon was harder than the entire expedition race.
Right.
I know. It was rough. There was a moment where he was very, very tired and said, baby, I just wish I could have I just wanted to break my ankle or something so I could be out of the race. And I'm like, you could have just stopped. He's like, no, but I just needed something to take me out. And so, and I'm like, and I think any adventure racer knows that there are those weak moments where you're like, you don't want to quit, but you don't want to keep going. So he never hit that point on our expedition race, but so I was scared of trail running because of his experience. And I've always liked hiking and stuff like that, and backpacking, but I just never even considered trail running. So I've discovered I would prefer to be out there trying to run up a hill and failing than just running around in the suburbs and on the asphalt. And it's just not my thing.
So, I hear you.
Yeah, it's not fun
and my
for me.
knees and my hips hear you.
Yeah. It hurts a lot more. Every time I get out there just for a quick run, I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, it's funny how I can get through all kinds of crazy stuff, but when I'm out on like a 3-mile run just really fast, it's like, I'm stopping. I can't do this. It's just the fun isn't there for me, and so it makes sense motivationally.
So you didn't just jump right into Expedition Oregon, right? You found yourself a smaller race to get your feet wet.
Yep. So Jamaica basically insisted you do not want to go into Expedition Oregon without any racing experience. And I mean, I'm so grateful he was on our team. There's no way we would have made it very far without him, or even past the start line to begin with. So, oh my gosh, if you want to race with Jamaica Lambie, do it. He's great. He really is. So he insisted we do the tech race. And I think we did it was the one they did in March. I can't remember the name of it now.
No
But
worries.
the Bend March Tech race. It was a 6-hour race, and I was almost in tears at the finish line there because this whole time I'm training, probably we decided to do the tech race maybe in January. So,
Okay.
I mean, it was like a 2.5 month, probably a little less, where I was just like, I just want to be able to make it to the finish line. I just want to be able to make it to the finish line. And when we get there, there's this dad with a 7-year-old. And I'm like, oh my God, the 7-year-old's gonna beat me. And we were like, they'd pass us, we'd pass them, they'd pass
Ah,
us, we'd pass them. And it was so cool to watch that dad out there. I wish I had my camera at one point because I just remember him reaching up at a checkpoint. It was up high in a tree. And you could either climb the tree, but I mean, at one point the dad looked at his son and you could tell he was almost thinking, can I just stick you on my shoulders and you know. And I just wish I'd had a picture of this cute family. I think he had a 12-year-old daughter with him as well. I mean, it
oh,
was just this
nice.
dad and his kids, man. And that
Yeah.
boy on that mountain bike, oh my gosh, I was dying. You're like, you're gonna die. You just,
Yeah.
a 7-year-old, so he's not gonna die. It was amazing to watch them zoom past. Every time we got to anything mountain biking, they'd always zoom right past us just because I couldn't. Um, but I just remember watching them the whole time thinking, oh, they're going to beat us. And I just really mentally just really wanted to finish that race. I'd never raced for very long. I mean, the longest thing I've ever done is a half marathon, which worst case scenario, you walk most of it and you're done in what, 3 hours, so
Yeah, sure.
that would be a really bad time. So, I just mentally was just like, just get to the finish line, just get to the finish line. I'd never done any orienteering. I had no idea about the checkpoints or map reading or any of that. I was mostly just following along. And my older brother, he's like 6'2", he's super fit. I mean, the guy was built for trail running. He just can go.
Yeah.
And Jamaica is obviously, I mean, he's not much taller than me, but he's super fit. And I just felt like the whole time I was really holding these guys back. It was a pretty great moment and experience for me to understand what it means to be out in the wilderness with a team, though, because
Yeah.
I'd never done team sports ever. I mean, I was raised to do piano and that's what we did. So I'd practice for 4 hours when I was in high school. I didn't go out and do sports. We would raft on the weekends and that was it. So team wise, I didn't really understand what that meant. And so I was grateful for Jamaica because at one point he saw how much I was struggling. And so it was a simple thing. He just threw a Cliff Chew at me. And he's like, here, eat this. And I was like, no, I'm fine. He's like, it's fine, Barbara, just eat it. This is teamwork. Come on, let's go. So, I ate it and I'm processing this and it was just like, it's no big deal, right? Like any adventure racer knows that's not a big deal. That's just what you do when someone's struggling to just, come on, we got to go. So you throw something at them to fix it. And it was like this moment where I was like, wait, I don't have to do this on my own. And it was like he's going to help me. And then when he breaks, I'm going to help him and it's going to be fine. And there's no resentment or, it was
Yeah.
just such a weird moment to be like, he's not going to hate me because I'm struggling right now because he knows at some point I've got his back.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know. It was really weird. Now it doesn't seem like that big a deal because obviously that's what you're going to do to get your team through the wilderness. But
Yeah.
at that moment, it was just like, whoa, I can't even explain it. But yeah, that was wow, this is a team sport.
Yeah.
So I think I let my ego went flying away in that moment because I realized obviously I was the slowest team member. I was always going to be there because I mean I started training. My brother called me when I think I probably weighed about 230 pounds at the time.
Oh,
So I mean, I had wanted ideally to just, go into that race weighing, 100 pounds less, no big deal. You can do that in 8 months. But it ended up being more like, I think I lost probably about 40. I actually ended up weighing myself around the tech race, actually, because I have a really bad eating disorder.
Mm.
And I'm not very shy about it, obviously, but it's been the dictator of my life for over 20 years. It's like this thing, and I just wanted it to go away so badly. And I was finally in a place where I was ready to let go of my dictator, or in my head, I often refer to my eating disorder voice as the demon. and so I had been battling my demon. This whole experience really did,
Yeah.
because I mean, at some point you have to, because I had to stop weighing myself because I was so focused, and I would do things that were counterproductive for my race training in order to feed my demon. And so I had to stop focusing on that. And my husband was like, yeah, Barbara, you got to let this go, because you don't have time to mess around, losing weight and obsessing over that to the point where you're not feeding yourself for these workouts, right? Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do both. And so I finally was able to really truly recognize how controlling my little demon has been this whole time. And it's kind of sad, actually. At
Oh,
moments I've just been like, whoa. I mean, every single day was ruled by that number on the scale. It's pretty crazy.
yeah.
To think of, I was either going to have a good day that day or a bad day, and it all had to do with some arbitrary number and what I decided I needed to be. And so this race was amazing for so many different reasons, but one of the things I left with it that I was so grateful for was that one thing. Because I mean, I've been trying for years, and I've been in therapy for years, and I really wanted I wanted it to go, but I didn't know how. And you talk to people with eating disorders, and they're like, and it's a daily struggle, but it's one day at a time. And I'm like, but how did you get to the point where you were willing to do the daily struggle? My
Yeah.
mind couldn't comprehend. It couldn't understand how you would ever let that go. I didn't know how. And so finally, at this one point, it was like, but you have to, because you have to decide what you want more. And it was really scary to battle that demon, because this demon doesn't
Yeah.
let me do anything. It's like, well, you can do that after you lose this amount of weight. You can do that after you weigh XYZ. And for everything, things that have nothing to do with anything, like, oh, well, you want that. Like, I mean, I've thought about writing a book, but then I think, no, you can do that after you lose weight. You should focus on that first, right? So it just like, it takes control of everything, your
Oh,
daily life. It's insane. And so it was finally like, you really want to do this race. And I knew that I was going to battle that demon and that voice saying, no, you can't. And so in March, I had to stop weighing myself, because I didn't want that number to tell me I couldn't do that race.
yeah.
So yeah, I had to put that to rest. And I remember my brother coming back from the team meet after, when they met with the team leaders. I don't know all the words to adventure racing. I don't. But that point in the race where they go and they meet up with the director and they go over rules and stuff like that. And he had
Like the
said something.
pre-race briefing.
Yes, thank you. That's it.
Oh.
Those words. But my brother came back and he was telling us some of the stuff that he said. And one of the things that Jason had said was that it's not often the fittest that are going to finish this race. It's the people who are not going to give up and stop. And I can't tell you the kind of relief that I felt when he said that, because I was like, yeah, I think I could do this, but the demon's telling me I can't. And so it was really comforting to hear someone say, but you can, because all you have to do is just keep going. And I'm really good at just keep going. I'm not fast, but I won't stop very easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty fun to hear that. And Jason had also at one point said something like, the more you practice something, the better you get at it, basically, right? Where, I mean, if you've practiced a lot saying, no, I'm not going to give up, then it becomes a lot easier to say that versus, well, let's just give up. And
Yeah.
I had practiced that a lot while I was training for it. And every time I had a moment where I was like, oh, I'm 5.5 miles in and I don't want to keep running and I just want to go home and see my babies. It was always like, this will be good practice because it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
So it's like, just practice saying no. So I'd already been doing that a long time. And it was like, oh, okay. So I might have some of the tools I need to get through this race. So apparently I did.
So how did the tech race translate to the expedition race, the 6 hour to the multi-day?
The pack. They're really different, obviously. I mean, oh my gosh, the expedition in comparison to a 6 hour race. I mean, a 6 hour race, you could probably go out there without anything more than a liter or two of water, and push come to shove, you may not finish in time, but you wouldn't be in trouble. Whereas Expedition Oregon, if you don't plan well, you could be in trouble, and we were in pretty remote parts of Oregon. So there were places where it's not the TV show where they're going to chopper us out if there's a problem where we just decide, oh, I have too many blisters. It's like, well, if you're stuck and you can't keep going, we'll find a way to get to you, but give us 8 hours, maybe. Yeah. So it's like, they're just not really the same. I mean, I guess it kind of gave me a feel for what it would be like times, 100.
Yeah.
I got an idea of kind of like how Jason makes a race, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. So it did help me understand what the mountain biking would be like, right? So I knew that would be, I knew that mountain biking would be mountain hiking, biking, but hike a bike. Those are the words you guys use. Yeah. So, I mean, I knew some of those things, right? Where it was like, I could see that this is kind of how he would do a race, right? And you just had to factor in that instead of doing it for 6 hours, you're going to be doing it for maybe 100 hours, and you'll be doing it in the dark, and you'll be doing it when you're really tired.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it just, I guess I got mostly the best thing was understanding how a team works doing this, and probably the other nice thing would be understanding how some of my gear worked, because I was using similar gear just for longer periods of time. So they're really different. They're fun, but very different.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe I can't make the connections yet because I'm too naive to see how a lot of them go in, but to me, they felt like very different experiences. And now I think, 6 hours adventure racing? Yeah, let's go do that. That would be fun. Yeah. No problem. Whereas in the moment, it was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So dramatic.
So what were you feeling at the starting line of Expedition Oregon? I mean, you sort of had this 6 hour experience, you had all this training, but yet still, have never done something this long. So where was your head at the beginning?
Oh man, I was so excited to get on the river. We had already decided to skip the prologue, because we're obviously not going to be in that competitive of a realm. And we did know that my brother Don and I, we were good rafters. And so we thought, well, we might as well hit the ground running and do the thing that we're good at.
Yeah, plus, great strategy.
Yeah, right. Like, so we just went straight onto the river. So in that moment, I was just mostly super duper excited to be finally rafting again. And I was really nervous at the same time, just because, as I said, I'd never guided before, and it was my responsibility to get my husband and I down those rapids. So there was this anxiety of thinking, what if I can't do this? What if I end up flipping this boat every single rapid? And it was comforting to know that there weren't, I think the most was a class 2, so it was a really good beginner for me.
Yeah.
Because you see these dinky little, I mean, in comparison to the Grand Canyon, these are really dinky little ripples in the ground. And you're like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. But mentally, I had kind of already prepared myself and my husband for, we might be in the water a lot.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, well, we'll just deal with it. And we had practiced, upturning our boat quite a bit, but that was on a lake. So wasn't quite sure how it would turn out in the water. I mean, I knew I could do it, but my husband's never, he's been rafting, like in commercial rafting a couple of times in an actual boat, not a pack raft. So
yeah.
pretty different.
Pack raft on an actual boat.
Yeah. So
Did you flip?
No, we didn't. I was really proud of myself.
Yeah. Well
I
done.
remember getting off that river, and I think on the Grand Canyon, our longest day had been 20 miles. So, I mean, even for someone who's done the Grand Canyon, 60 miles is a lot. And I remember going to a raft shop at some point I was considering getting like a practice boat, just a cheapie. Anyway, he was a distance kayaker, and he was like, well, the longest I've done is 60 miles, and that was rough, and so he was telling me all this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. But we didn't die. It was fine. It was definitely the easiest part of the race, so I'm really glad that we decided to do that part first. It was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of that day. I got off that river on such a crazy high. I think there is actually footage of me talking to a cameraman at some point, because it didn't even process in my mind that I was talking to a camera, because I was so excited. I had just had the best day ever. It was fantastic. I nailed it. I didn't dump my husband in the river 1,000,000 times. And I was on such a high. We had just gotten off the river. We had kind of planned, okay, this might take us like 20 hours, depending on the flow of the river. And we got off before sunset. I had mentally prepared to be in the water constantly and freezing constantly and rafting at night, which I have done a few times, but it's not super fun, guys. So we got off right at sunset, and we had actually thought that we had maybe another hour or 2 of paddling, because we hadn't I think we missed a bridge that we were counting to gauge how many miles down we'd been. And so, I mean, we're like, wait, this is it? And it was just the weirdest moment where it's like, oh my gosh, we're off the river and it's the sun. We get to get through our transition without, worrying. I mean, we did eventually have to get headlamps on because it was setting, but it was just, I was on such a high. It was so great. It went downhill really fast from there.
Okay, so what happened next?
Well, it was the 80-mile mountain biking section, right? So anyone who has listened to anyone talk about Expedition Oregon 2021 knows that the mountain biking section was brutal. The pro teams, brutal. Us rookies, it knocked, I think, at least one team out, maybe even a second. It was no good, guys. And I'm not great at mountain biking. We've covered this before. So it was, I mean, I was actually on a really good high. I mean, it was a high. It was awesome. And we're going up in the dark, which is fine. I was fine with that. I was having fun. I was just enjoying my husband and, being out in the woods and looking into the darkness, wondering, hey, I wonder where we are now, kind of thing, right? Like, it's just like this weird blur of darkness when you're racing at night, where it's just like you're moving forward, but in a black hole. Well, the nights are long and sometimes full of terrors, but definitely long nights out there. But I was having fun with my husband, and it started getting cold. One of our teammates was struggling at that point. I was just tired from staying up doing maps, and so we were walking a lot of the time, just to kind of help him get through his moment. But the next day is when, I mean, I remember getting to the top of the hill during sunrise. Maybe I have a thing for the sun. I don't know. it's like sunset and it's amazing, and sunrise and it's amazing. I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this with my sister someday. Because, you know, as a mom, we stay up all night all the time.
Yeah.
And my baby had colic, so I was up all night all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, and once we said yes to the race and we're dealing with this screaming baby, I mean, he just cried. Seriously, guys, you can hear about it, but until you have lived a baby with colic, there is nothing in the world like it. It is beyond terrible. And I have postpartum depression where I really hate my babies. Did
Oh.
not help our bond.
Yeah.
But anyway, ever since we knew we were doing the race, it was like, oh, this is just really good sleep deprivation training and how you can handle life without sleeping. Because there
Yeah.
was one point where I did go 48 hours without sleeping because of the baby and because I had to take care of my kids during the day.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. I wasn't making the best decisions after those 48 hours, but
Yeah.
I discovered, oh, I can actually keep people alive and make decisions that aren't going to kill us all. So that's something.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just remember getting to the
Bonus.
top. Yeah, right. Like I just remember getting to the top of this massive inclined hill and the sun is rising and we finally stopped to let our teammates rest, and I couldn't even sleep because I was so pumped. I was still so pumped, and this had to have been like 30, 36, somewhere in that range after
Yeah.
starting our race, right? And I'm just like
Yeah.
on, come on guys, let's go.
You were the strong one at that point.
I was, but unfortunately I was also the girl, which definitely plays into how you can help your team, at least with rookie teams, right? Like I wouldn't consider my husband to be an egotistical macho kind of guy, and I have definitely pulled him through stuff before as his spouse. But when you're out there, even the people I expected would let me help them, they often did not. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why that is, or maybe they were afraid that because I was the weakest teammate, they didn't want to pull on my strength because they wanted me to save it for when. But I think when you're racing out there, you got to use who's working while they're working, because you don't know what's going to happen the next day, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just for me, that was probably one of the more frustrating things racing, was just, can I just carry your pack for like 5 minutes? It's not a big deal. It's 5 minutes. I can handle carrying a pack for 5 minutes, and you might be able to mentally regroup for those 5 minutes. It's not that big a
Yeah.
deal. But to them, it was. I was the only one who ever was towed. No shocker. Not a lot, but definitely the end of that mountain biking race, there was some towing going on. But yeah, I was on a high until the day came, and it was hot. There was not a lot of water out there, and I actually ended up getting really dehydrated, so that by
Mm.
the end, I think we were looking for checkpoint 7. That day is kind of a bit of a blur because I hit my personal physical wall finally, probably about 48 hours into a race, maybe not 48 hours. Somewhere around there, I don't know. Somewhere out in Bend, Oregon, I hit my very first physical wall that people talk about when they're like, oh man, I hit a wall and I couldn't keep going. And it was just like, but you have to keep going. And we're like biking and lifting my bike over logs and stuff. And I'm just thinking, I just can't keep going. And like 2 hours later, I'm still thinking, oh man, I just need a break. But somewhere around checkpoint 7, I want to say I was so dehydrated by that point, and I was so hot. I wasn't sweating because I was dehydrated. I started throwing up, and I couldn't keep food down or water down, and that was basically my downhill slide on the race. I never, even after the finish line, we were sitting there talking, and I still was like, I might hear hurl. I don't know. I was in a good mood because I had just finished that race, but I was also like, should I eat? Should I not eat? I feel really sick.
Yeah.
So after that mountain biking section, I never got better after that. It was just too hard to recover from so much, I think, maybe. But I still made it to the end.
Yeah, that's
We were just a
awesome.
lot slower than we wanted to be. Yeah. So we didn't
Uh,
know, well, I didn't know that when you're doing that race, you could skip out on certain chunks. And so, I mean, we didn't get to do the last half of the race. We ended up just going straight to the finish line.
okay.
But we did do the full rafting, mountain biking, and trekking session. So
Okay.
that's the first full half of the race. And then, I mean, we still had to make it back to Primeville. So
What was your team name?
Lost Boys. I think we
Okay.
finished second to last or last. We didn't
You
do great,
finished.
guys.
Well,
Yeah,
you
we
did
finished,
awesome.
right? I was really proud
Yeah.
of myself for just getting through that race.
Yeah.
I was definitely done by the very last day. It had gotten really cold the night before, and I was struggling to get warm. There's definitely a video of my high when I get off the river,
Yeah.
and there was definitely a guy filming me feeling very sorry for myself, wrapped up in a teammate's sleeping bag with, my husband had stripped me naked because my clothes were all wet. And I'm in this sleeping bag sitting by a fire, shivering. It felt like forever, but it's probably not
Yeah.
that long. It did feel like forever, but I have never been so cold in my life. And I'm just sitting there. I couldn't talk. My eyes couldn't focus on things
Oh,
anymore.
wow.
It was really cold.
Yeah.
And there's like this cameraman filming me and my sorrows. And I'm just sitting there naked in my teammate's sleeping bag thinking, I just want my baby.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was feeling really sorry for myself. He had actually had his first birthday while we were on the race. And
Oh my
so
God.
I know it was, I just, in that moment, even now my eyes water and I think I just wanted to be with my baby. I was so cold and
Yeah.
he's like the most adorable, chubby, fat, warm
Oh.
human being ever. And he's not here with me. And why am I out here? But, fortunately it was the very last day of the race. And by that point, we'd pretty much run out of time to do anything. Just because of the water levels and stuff like that. We knew from what pro teams were finishing, and they had told us some of the times that they were finishing. They're like, you probably won't be able to make it. And so it's just like, and I think they were looking at me
Yeah.
like, maybe you can. But also thinking, please don't, because go put that lady to rest. She's done.
Oh.
But I did, yeah. I mean, that was my low point, was the very last day, a few hours
Yeah.
before the end of the race. And I mean, there was no choice other than to keep going by that point anyway, right?
Yeah.
So just kept going.
So how many hours and how long did it take you to complete the race?
So we raced somewhere. I know that it was 97 hours. I don't know the exact minutes, but it was
Okay.
in the 97-hour range. So
Yeah.
I think it was in total, the cutoff was 4 p.m. that day. So, I mean, we did finish before that cutoff, but there was
Yeah.
no way we could have gone and gotten a few more points without getting stuck out there and missing finish. And we were done. And by we, I mean definitely me. I think Jamaica and my husband probably could have kept going, but I feel like even my brother was ready to be home, talking to
Yeah.
people we love. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was
Uh,
an awesome experience. I love it, and I definitely want to keep doing it. I
yeah.
discovered something I love finally, something that's,
Oh.
yeah, it's fantastic. I totally love it. I got home, and after that race I started binge listening to podcasts,
Oh
and
yeah.
oh man, yeah. So I mean, obviously, how many of us love Sonia Sonia Wick. um but she actually was through the transition station, and I remember her coming through, and I am just like, I had like an emergency blanket over my head and everything. I was a pathetic little ball of a mess over there. And I just remember her zipping through and looking up and be like, oh my God, it's her. And I couldn't believe that I was in the same race as this
Yeah.
amazing athlete. And I just wish, when, afterwards, and I'm rested and I'm like, man, I just wish I had like something to just be like, just say hi, anything. But there was nothing left in me at that moment. I had to get myself fixed so we could get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But I came home and I listened to like all her podcasts, and I just started listening to all the things. And I got onto a whole bunch of Facebook groups, and the Women's of AR Facebook group. they have like a mentoring program on there.
Mhm.
So I asked Stephanie Ross if she would be my mentor and kind of help me figure out how to do this, because I'm definitely going to keep doing this and I just don't want to kill myself doing it.
Sure. Yeah. We like
So
you to finish alive.
yeah.
Always the bonus.
Well, and yeah, right. Like, and if I'm going to go, I mean, I wanted to learn how to navigate myself, because that was something that I discovered out there that I really did like doing.
Mhm.
And it's, I think it kind of helps you feel grounded during those dark, long nights to actually have the map and see, because otherwise it's really hard for you to gauge how far you're going, because it's just, you're walking through
Yeah.
a big black hole. But, but yeah, I just like, I don't know. I was telling Jamaica last night, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've fallen in a rabbit hole, and I'm just like going for it. I'm just lost
Cool.
in this world of, wow, look at all this cool stuff. So yeah, that's what I do on my spare time, or when I'm doing
Yeah.
the dishes, I stick on a podcast, and
Oh yeah.
they're always, my kids are like, what are you doing, Mom? And I'm like, shh, I'm listening. I thought the big race was over. You're doing another one. And it's like, why would you do this to us? And guys, it's going to be fine. I'm a
So do
lot
you have
calmer
another
now after
race?
the race.
What's
So
the next race on your calendar?
I signed up for Buff Betty with my sister, and I jokingly told my sister-in-law, oh, I signed you up for your birthday, happy birthday. And she called me up in a panic, but I could tell in her voice that was a little part of her who was relieved that I kind of forced her hand. So then I
Yeah.
actually forced her hand. And so it's me and my sister and my sister-in-law, and we're going to be racing in the Buff Betty in September 25th.
Okay. Excellent.
So yeah, and that one's only 8 hours, so it'll be
Oh,
fine.
only. Yeah, no worries.
All right, I know. My
That's like,
sister-in-law's like, oh my God, it's 8 hours, we're gonna die. I'm like, no, it's gonna be fine, Jamie. We're not gonna let you die. It's only 8 hours. What's the worst that can happen? So that's our next race that's planned. But I've also been in contact with Bend Racing, and they do an online training coaching thing. I don't know the words to that one either, but my sister and I are going to start, it's basically like Zoom coaching calls with Team Bend. So we're going to start
cool.
doing that, just so
Yeah,
that
great.
I have more tools to make sure I don't kill myself and my sister. My sister's definitely, we're going to try and do Expedition Oregon in 2022 if we can get in, and then we need 2 more teammates.
There you go.
Yeah. So we'll find them along the way, hopefully. Hopefully we'll meet the this year. This next 2022 race, Team Bend has already said that they'll have bigger qualification, like they'll have more requirements to qualify for Expedition Oregon. I think last year they had the most rookie teams they've ever had, and
yeah,
I'm sure it was pretty rough on a director to be putting out these people where you have no idea. I can only imagine the level of stress that he had. I felt really bad because we were lost at one point, like lost, and off the maps lost.
Oh,
and I know, can you imagine as a race director to be like, these guys are gonna die, and I'm responsible. I feel so bad for him. I'm like, man, that must have been really stressful. I mean, it was stressful for us while we were out there because it was not fun. But I'm fairly certain that part of Lost Boys being actually lost definitely pushed them over the edge of, right, guys, we got to have some like qualifiers to get into next year, because this is not healthy for anyone.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, that's a serious race, and it's good to have to kind of know, okay, there's a certain level of experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, just to make sure people don't get in over their heads, they don't watch a TV show and say, hey, I'm going to do this, right? Like, who would do that?
Yeah. Oh, you mean me? Yeah, right. This is not like a 4-day backpacking trip. It's a little bit different. But we did have Jamaica. So so I think even when we got to the finish line, Jason had even said, I was really worried about you guys. And then I saw that and he was talking to Mako, I saw that you were on their team. And, our name, Lost Boys, is very ominous. So I think once he saw that Jamaica was there, he's like, wait, no, I know this guy. I've seen him in my race before. He knows how to get out. And Jason didn't know at the time, but we had picked up a map in the lava area place. You you could tell I was really involved with that section.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been on the race knows during the trekking section, the lava place, there was, I don't know where my brother got it, but Don found like some random map, like a national state park kind of map thing, and he was going to put it back, and I actually ended up being like, no, actually I'll keep this, because we're out in the wilderness, and I figured the more maps you have, the merrier. It turns out I was possibly right. I don't know. That map did take us through where we were, and eventually we did find our way out, but
Okay.
I know that Jason Magnus was definitely stressed when you've got a team going off.
Yeah, sure. Generally, the race director will say if outside maps are allowed or not.
Yeah.
And if they don't say, then you can, any map you have, use.
I don't remember him saying, but
just for like future reference.
Yeah.
But if you're off the maps or like completely lost, and yet rules are different.
Right. Like I
you
am
just
sure
get yourself back on.
Exactly. I'm sure that at that point he was like, do we need to send someone out there? I mean, at that point you're just like, I hope they find their way back, which we did. But we definitely did poach to get out of the butte that we were on. Because again, I was struggling. We got off that race and Jamaica's like, wow, you brought a whole new level to bonking. You can bonk and then bonk and then bonk. But now I discovered the heat kills me, because I was still recovering from my dehydration when we were up there. And I just was struggling to swallow. I couldn't swallow any water. I couldn't swallow. By that point, it had been like, we'd been racing for 3.5 days. And for 2 of those days, I hadn't been able to I was able to drink a little bit of water, but I was still throwing food up. So, like you get so dehydrated, you can't swallow. I didn't know that this is a thing, but like you cannot force your mouth to swallow. I've had bulimia for 20 plus years. I'm really good at forcing myself to eat when I don't want to eat. And I'm really good at controlling when I want to throw up and when I don't. So this was a really different experience for me to be like, well, I don't have control over this. And that's the one thing in my life that has always been my safety net of control. So it was a little bit mind blowing to be out there and not able to like take care of my body in that way. But we did end up having to poach to get out of there. So I'm very grateful. I even have thought I should send like a thank you note to the ranch owners that we did actually go on to private land on, just because I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, you saved me so much, because there was no way out of it. I feel like it was just this butte of never ending torture. The sun's beating down on us. There's no shade. There's no water, but that is where mosquitoes came from. There were so many. I don't understand, because my brother and Don and I are like, where's the water? Because there were so many mosquitoes and they were starving for human flesh. At one point my brother's like, well, there's no shame in quitting, Barbara, because I was like passing out on my bike, and then I'd cycle a couple feet more and I would pass out. I thought I was tired, but it was just heat exhaustion, and so I was passing out from the heat. And so at one point he said, there's no shame in stopping, but one, there was no shade. We were out in the middle of nowhere. We couldn't even find the road off that butte. So there was no way who's going to come get us? We had our bikes with us. It's like, we had to get off that ourselves. And most importantly, if we stopped or even started going slow on our bikes, the mosquitoes were like, I just felt like a cartoon figure where there's like a horde of mosquitoes just chasing our bike, because even if we were going slow on our bikes, we were just getting eaten to pieces. So I just looked at him like, no, we're going to keep going, because I didn't want to be a skeleton by the time they found us. And with that many mosquitoes, we would have been. So it was like, we got to get off of this butte, man. This thing is torture. So we did, but we had to poach to do it. So I am very grateful to those ranch owners, because coming down that really steep hill, it was in the shade of the butte, and it was really cooling, right? And it was all straight downhill. And so all I had to do was sit on my bike, and it was so weird, because I remember getting down to the bottom of the hill and being like, oh guys, I think that caffeine pill kicked in. And then afterwards I realized, wait a second, that was not a caffeine pill. That was just my body finally being like, thank God, Barbara.
Well, I could probably talk to you all day, but I
I
think
know. I'm
both of
sorry.
us will
I
have
could.
kids come running in any minute.
I've got my
Yeah.
1-year-old sitting there. He's gonna start pounding on the door in a second.
All right. Any last words? Anything else you want to say?
Just if you're thinking about adventure racing, you're already halfway through the door. So just do it. If you've thought, I wonder if I can do this, you can do this. It's just a matter of deciding how bad you want it. I mean, I gave up my son's first birthday. I gave up my favorite vice, my eating disorder. I had to like kill my demon.
Yeah.
Who's been holding my hand in a very destructive way for 20 years. So if you're thinking of doing adventure racing, just go out, do a 4-hour or 6-hour race. If you like being outdoors, do it. I mean, if you like, I don't know, getting lost in the woods with people you may or may not trust, do it. No, definitely pick your teammates wisely because they are standing in between you and literally death on those expedition races.
Yeah.
But I chose mine wisely. I was never afraid for my life while I was out there, despite having some pretty serious encounters. Not too serious, but I was with good teammates who kept me alive and didn't
That's a
let it
team
get.
sport, right?
Yeah, they made sure that it didn't get to the point where it was dangerous, right? So, but if you're thinking of doing adventure racing, I would say just get out there and do it. It's fantastic. You've done your little half marathons. I mean, I did it.
Hmm?
So why not? I mean, I would just say you should definitely do it. If you want to do it, go out and do it. Life isn't a spectator sport. Just go and do it. You will be happy for it. You're much happier for the things that you decide to do and fail at than things that you don't do at all, right?
All
I
right.
would have been much happier just failing at this race and still doing it than nothing at all. It's been a fantastic journey, life changing in
There you
multiple
go.
ways.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you. It's been so fun talking about it with another adventure racer. My husband's sick of listening to me talk about adventure racing.
well,
So thank you.
yeah, there you have it, everybody. Rookie adventure racer, average person, Barbara Phipps, who just happened to kill her demon and do a 97-hour expedition adventure race. No big deal. All right.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.